Thank you. As Vice Chair, I would like to call the CDBG Citizens Advisory Committee meeting to order. With that, we'll have roll call, please. Chair Suttles is absent. Mr. Tom Benson.
Present.
Miss Janie Evans.
Here.
Miss Deborah Miller.
Present.
Miss Deborah Savavini.
Here.
Mr. John Rocha.
Present.
And as Vice Chair, Sandy Griffiths here. Thank you, everyone. Our next action item is to approve the minutes of the July 19th, 2023 CDBG Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Do I have a second?
Janie seconds.
Thank you, Ms. Janie Evans. Our next agenda item is discussion and possible action regarding a funding increase to Prescott Cares Economic and Homeowner Assistance Program.
Well, Madam Chair, then a motion, go ahead and vote on the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. May I have a motion to approve the minutes? All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. Next action item and discussion possible action is regarding a funding increase to Prescott Cares Economic and Homeowner Assistance Program. If you recall, at our last meeting, we had a discussion about increasing the $5,000 amount to potentially $8,000, and we had a little discussion or a higher amount. So with that, I would like to open it up to the committee for further discussion and an action, please.
And I'm going to go ahead and just have a little mini presentation, kind of a reminder of what that item is about. So let me go ahead and hit a couple slides. Okay. Just like Madam Chair had mentioned, this was discussion began in our last CAC meeting. This is in regard specifically to the Prescott Cares money, not the minor home repair. So remember, those are two different programs. We're only talking about the Prescott Cares program, how it initially looked, and what it did initially look when it was put into place. There was two parts of it. First part was financial assistance for LMI individuals or households with their mortgage, rent, or utilities, past due utilities. The second part of it, the second program, was financial assistance for Prescott small businesses. Both programs had a cap of $5,000, okay? A couple of things, there has to be a clear tie back to COVID-19 pandemic, that they were affected by it. And the remaining balance is $91,000, a little bit over $91,000. It was more, but we did vote on the U.S. Vets and the Polara Health project, which brought down our total amount. That's what we have left for those two programs. The next two slides are pretty wordy, a lot of text. This is what Michelle Chavez used in her workshop when she met with potential applicants. So I'm just going to leave it up there for you guys to read. This first slide is about the individuals and households which could receive funding from Prescott Cares. Give you just a minute or so to review that.
And I also, if I may, I also brought the brochures.
Yeah, and share, if you want to go ahead and hand them out to everybody on the committee, Sherry, that'd be great.
May I have permission?
Yes. I'll take one. Is it the same? Yeah. Okay. And then I'll go ahead, get to the next slide. The next slide, we're talking about the small business program. Okay. And then we also have Sherry Heine from the Chamber of Commerce here to answer any questions about this program. So let me go one more slide. So open to questions.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis. I'd like to open it up for conversation to the committee. Mr. Benson, do you have questions or comments?
I have no questions or comments.
Do you see the $5,000 retaining static, or are you in favor of any sort of increase?
Oh, I'm in favor of the increase if it's going to be used. Does it seem like there's a demonstrated need yet?
Mr. Benson, we can bring that up during public comment with Ms. Heine.
Okay.
Ms. Janie Evans, do you have comments or questions?
I do not have any comments or questions.
What do you feel with the dollar amount, staying static or increasing?
I think it makes sense to have it increased.
Do you have a dollar amount in mind, or?
It was mentioned either 8,000
Right.
or 10,000. I would go to 8.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Savawini?
I would agree to increase it to 8,000.
Ms. Miller?
I agree with the 8,000, but I'm kind of concerned that if we just do the 8,000 instead of capping it at 10,000, we may not have anyone interested in applying. So I'd like to hear what Ms. Heine has to say about who is still looking for dollar funding.
Perfect. Mr. Rocha?
I wasn't here last meeting, but I did review the minutes. And I think I would just have I am in favor of the increase. I think we've already had conversations in the past about feeling like that was a small amount. I would probably like to hear from Ms. Heine as well on just whether there was conversation or discussion, if there was a difference between the individual to the business. Maybe Sherry Heine can go and give us some clarity as to what she's seen that's been maybe an average amount or whatnot for both individual or business. That's what I would say.
Perfect. I totally agree, and I think there should be some sort of increase. And based on public comment from Ms. Heine, then I would see us coming to a resolution and an agreement. So we are welcome to bring Ms. Heine up.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and committee members. This program has been just a great program, I think, overall. And I remember when we were first starting the conversation with this program, I know many of you felt that 5,000 cap was very low. And because we didn't know about the program and it was uncharted, I think that's why we decided to stay with the 5,000. I would say that for businesses, I think I heard you all say before, and I would agree with you, that the 10,000 cap, just because it's a cap doesn't mean we have to give them that amount. But to have that would have more businesses apply for it. It's a lot of paperwork. Many of them found that 5,000 wasn't worth it, so I think 10,000 would be worth it. And we still, one of the things that we'll go back and look at is from the time that we started the program until the time COVID ended, we probably can adjust some of our dates that you see on here because the pandemic was still official even maybe a year. I can't remember the exact date. I can look it up, but we could extend this program for any businesses that were having concerns to that date. So if we were to change the date, this program has been on pause for many reasons, and one of them was to also be able to address what you approved from the last meeting. We made some major adjustments, which, again, we didn't know at the time to check all those boxes. So I think that having the cap brought to 10,000, we can go back and market this in the fall and see what businesses we can help that are still struggling, because businesses are still recovering from all of this. And we'll take a look at those dates, must be in operation. Those are all the things that we'll need to meet with or discuss with HUD and make sure that we have all of our dates in line. But I know that they will change because they changed twice because of each year that we had, when it first started in 2020, then it was 2021. And so whenever the pandemic was considered officially over is when we will be able to take a look at those dates for businesses to qualify. I think I need to say to qualify the business. So that might bring a few more businesses into that realm. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Ms. Sherry. Mr. Rocha, do you have questions?
Yeah, I do. Hi, Sherry. Thanks.
Hi. Good to see you.
Can you share some data as to what the percentages of business utilization and individual utilization for these funds have been, just for running the program?
For running the program, so I believe that we helped 25 individuals and 23 businesses in the past. So it was almost 50-50. I would not recommend the residential piece being raised to 10,000. I think 5,000 is a fair cap for residential, but I do believe for the business, the 10,000 cap would be more appropriate because of the nature of what they're dealing with.
Can you share, so with that said, keeping it maybe on the individual side at 5,000, can you share what maybe the most common or top two most common things have been from the individual
So
side?
for the individual, some of them lost their jobs. Some of them caught COVID and are not able to work anymore. And so those have been some of the cases that I had heard going through the process. And now, and I think we'll have to take a look at the long COVID. There are some folks that were really affected and may not be able to work at the same capacity that they were. And then the other residents literally lost their jobs.
More. Okay, last one.
Thank you.
As far as the, is there any way of figuring out what the percentages of folks who have, say, for example, I'm a business and I go and I find out about Prescott Cares. And so I'm an inbound business lead, whatever you want to call it, a potential applicant, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know roughly how many folks turn away after receiving the criteria or eligibility requirements? So say, you have 20 businesses come in, they're interested, but then they say, oh, it's 5,000. And then what do I have to do for that 5,000? And then they walk away. You see where I'm going? Like,
I
just
do.
Getting an idea of what.
Yeah, I don't know
turnover-
if I would have a true percentage for you right now, but I would say that it was a handful that I know of off the top of my head. Yeah.
A handful of folks who would
12.
engage and then turn
Right.
away after
Yep.
realizing that
Yes.
call it the details.
I
of
would
the
say
program.
about a dozen that turned away.
Okay, that's
Yep.
it for me. Thank you, Sherry.
The other portion of it was we did have some folks from outside of our community try to apply. So that would be the other piece that we had as well.
Thank you, Mr. Rocha. Ms. Miller, questions for Ms. Heine?
No, she answered them. John had the same questions I did.
Thank you.
The only thing I would say as a comment is I would be in favor of raising to 8,000 the individual just based on the cost of living increases that have come based on the inflation and based on tax revenues.
That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. And Mr. Rocha always does seem to come with the same questions that we all have. How does he do that? You can't see mine. Ms. Savallini?
I do have a question. This is a what if question. What if I have seen the numbers for COVID going up. If somebody loses their job now because they have COVID, will this money cover any future epinephrine?
Pandemics?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that's a lot of the changes that have taken place as they've looked at this Prescott Cares or the CDBG CV COVID monies is to open it up a bit more for future pandemics and emergency kind of situations that any like township would go through. So yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Savallini. Ms. Evans?
I'm good.
Mr. Benson?
I think most of my questions were answered. You implied that there were probably 10 or so that turned away because they thought the 5,000 was too small. Mm-hmm. What number do you think would be required to bring them back?
I think that if you look at the 10,000, that would, when you think of a business going after 5,000 versus 10,000 and with all the paperwork and exposing themselves because they, even though it's all confidential, they do have to fill out a lot of paperwork and provide a lot of information, payroll and everything. So, yeah.
That answers my question.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. I do have a question, Ms. Heine.
Yes.
Does long COVID fit in the same parameters as COVID?
As of individuals that could use this fund,
And or businesses that have suffered?
Right.
Are they considered both the same?
yes, I would say again going back to my previous answer. What HUD has done is really open this up beyond the time frame of when COVID supposedly ended. So we're moving forward to future pandemics, emergency situations. Long COVID would fall into that for sure.
Thank you. And then, Ms. Heine, out of the 23 businesses that we have funded, those were under the $5,000 range.
Yes.
Do we feel that there could be repercussions if we open this back up and now we have extended the dollar limit further? Could they come back for the additional monies?
We feel that we talked about it with the staff, and we feel that that would be available to them if they would need those dollars. And there were some that were hit pretty hard where that could be very valuable to them.
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
I'm surprised, Mr.
He would have to look very far, and I wrote it extremely tiny.
Because technically they would still qualify because they had those issues. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Further questions for Ms. Heine, committee members? So if we would like to have further discussion and make a motion.
Thank you.
And this is I put up the wording on the PowerPoint. Whatever you guys decide.
Madam Pro Tem Chair, I would like to amend the wording that is up on our screen there to include it as additional monies for the individual person and then individual monies for the businesses so that they would be separated and show increases, but it would be increases that would be applicable to each of those groups.
I am in support of that, Mr. Rocha. Everybody? Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So would you like to make a motion, Ms. Miller?
Okay. I move to approve an increase of the Prescott Cares CDBG CV program funding from the personal amount of $5,000 to $8,000 and program funding for the business amount from $5,000 to $10,000.
Mr. McGinnis, does that fit with a proper motion?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. All of
needs to
those
be-
in favor?
Be seconded.
Well, I'll second that motion.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
Yeah, John Rocha, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Rocha. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes. Both motion passes. Okay. All
Thank you.
right.
Agenda item C, Mr. McGinnis.
Yes. I'm going to actually jump into the staff reports. We do not have an update on the minor home repair program. We discussed it last week or last CAC meeting, and it's pretty much closing out. So this is where we're at right now. We're still waiting for HUD to process our annual action plan. So we haven't gotten the direct information from them stating what our amounts are going to be for this next year. And I'm not sure when that happened last year, but I think it's hopefully pretty soon we'll get that acknowledgement from HUD that we're good to go for this program year. Needs workshop, as I announced in the last meeting, is scheduled for October. I do have a pretty big list of organizations, non-for-profits, individuals that I'll be inviting to that, and also utilizing the committee for feedback on who to include on that workshop. And then the last item I wanted to talk about, which is pretty exciting, was the ribbon cutting ceremony that happened last week. I have some pictures, so I was just going to go through the pictures. If that was all right. So here we go. There's Ellen. She was very excited and did great as our hosting the event. And then one of the speakers, a few speakers came out, but I thought this was the most impactful speaker of the group. I'm not sure. Ellen had mentioned that one of the persons, one of the, I think, kids that are part of our program was in a wheelchair and recommended this was her suggestion was this ADA trail, something to that effect. Is that correct, Tom? It was something to that effect. She got really good feedback. Yeah. So anyway, this was pretty emotional part of it, which was awesome. And then the actual ribbon cutting here. And then, yeah, that's it. So if you have the opportunity to get out there, please do. It's really fantastic, and just proof. I think regarding like CDBG and what we're able to do, what you guys are able to do, that this is a really special program. So. Any other comments? Tom, did you have anything to share on that? Any thoughts?
I may be a little premature, but there are two things that are going to happen. There is a pond there, and right now the pond is not ADA accessible, and they're in the process of making a trail down to the pond, and they have they have. I guess you call it vehicles that the people in wheelchairs can use. They're kind of like a off-road wheelchair with big wheels and so forth, and they're going to use that. So that's kind of exciting too, because you don't know how important it is to somebody that's disabled to be separated and not be able to enjoy the entire location. The pond, by the way, is beyond the paved area right now and down a ways. The other comment I have is that just to kind of prep you in the article, right now there are just porta-johns, and this is going to become a city asset. And so we're investigating the possibility of putting solar toilets or some kind of a more functional, and we've already got permission from the city that they will maintain and clean them if we can get the funding for it. So that's just a little preview of what's to come.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Benson.
Any questions about that?
I want to make a comment that at times it seems like we're dealing with modifications of bathrooms and sidewalk repairs. But when we see a project like this come before us, it's so heartwarming. And it just makes it all that more important of what we do and how it works as a community.
Absolutely.
And it just, it's pretty doggone wonderful.
It's particularly important when you look at the age group of our community. And many of those people, this will finally open up an opportunity to be outside of nature. By the way, the 26th of May is a wildflower walk. Will be led by guides. Ellen Basher is one of the guides. You may want to stop by and take that in.
Of this month, the 26th of this month of August. You're in May.
Yeah, sorry,
back in time.
26th of August. I'm sorry.
So awesome. Well,
Thank you, Mr. Benson.
The times are 8 to 11, I think. 8 to 11 or 8 to 10.
Awesome.
Mr. McInnes, with that, we have no further agenda items.
I do not.
So thank you, everyone. I need a motion for adjournment, please.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Rocha. All those in favor? Aye. Aye.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.